Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today I'm bringing you my top 10 premium ships from the Armory. Now, just up front, this is of course all of my opinion, and obviously I can't form an opinion on a ship if I haven't played it yet. So I do have a lot of ships from the Armory. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And as you can see on the screen right now, I do not have a good chunk of them still, so if a ship that you really like that you thought should have been on this list isn't on this list, it might be because I simply don't have it yet, and I don't recommend ships that I myself cannot personally vouch for. So if I haven't played it, I can't vouch for it, so that might be why a ship that you thought really should have been on this list isn't on this list. I do apologize for that, but I mean, I only have so much money and time to grind for resources for some of these ships. So anyway, again, this is all just my opinion, and I'm only going to go into these ships a little bit because there are 10 of them, and this thing about if I spend 2 minutes per ship, that's 20 minutes right there. If I spend any more time than that, it's going to be a pretty long video. I can't even spend 5 minutes talking about each ship, because then this video would be almost an hour long. So anyway, let's get going. So at number 10 we have the Tier 7 Polish destroyer Wicka. I just call it the Bliss. I'm sorry, Polish people, if I mispronounced it. It means lightning in Polish, I believe. So anyway, the Wicka is an amazing Tier 7 premium destroyer. It is, I mean, if you just look at it, it's actually quite large for a destroyer. And since it is large, it does also have a large pool of hit points for a destroyer, especially at Tier 7. It's got just over 15,000 hit points, and it's quick. It's got pretty decent guns, pretty decent torpedoes. Its detection range is a bit large for a destroyer, but this is actually one of my first premium destroyers that I bought in the game. I heard so many good things about it, and decided to go ahead and get it. And yeah, it met my expectations. It's a fun destroyer to play. It's a bit more comfortable than other destroyers because it does have so much health. And if you're new to destroyers, it's a pretty good place to start. But it is Tier 7, so it's higher up there in the tiers, so maybe you want to start a bit lower, but it is still a good all-around destroyer. Alright, going into number 9, we have the Tier 6 Premium Australian Cruiser Perth. Now, the Perth has quite a good number of consumables for a cruiser, and especially when at Tier 6, you get hydro, you get smokescreen, and you get a catapult plane, all in a Tier 6 cruiser. And it's also pretty dang quick, and it has a really good acceleration. Not the best deceleration, but man, you can get out of some tight spots pretty easy. Has torpedoes, has really decent guns. And also, its smoke consumable is a unique consumable in that it actually has a roving smoke screen. Which means once you activate it, it continuously just disperses smoke the entire time it's active. And if you move, it will follow you, obviously. But I mean, you can't go flying around at top speed. You have to crank it down to 1/4 speed, and it'll go with you wherever you go. So it's really, really useful. You can get out some tight situations with it, and you can be pretty tricky with it too, and trick ships to coming in and after you. And by the time they get to where you were, you've already maneuvered around to get your torpedoes on them. I believe that is the clip that I'm showing you on screen right now. But anyway, a great Tier 6 cruiser, and one that I would recommend you get. Alright, so number 8, we have the Tier 7 American cruiser, Atlanta. Now, the Atlanta is more of a large destroyer than a cruiser. She's got 8 turrets on her, 2 guns per turret, which brings us to a grand total of 16 guns. Add to that they are American 5-inch guns, and they reload extremely quickly. We all know what the Atlanta is. If you're in a Tier 7 game and you see just a never-ending rainbow of HE, that's an Atlanta. Now, the Atlanta has all them guns. She has unlimited charges of defensive fire for AA guns. She has radar, and she has torpedoes, although the torpedoes are kind of oh crap moment torpedoes. Their range is only about it is only 4.5 kilometers, so they're really for, like I said, those oh crap moments, or just ambushing an enemy that's coming around the corner of an island. Other than that, they aren't that useful. Also, the Atlanta is pretty much made out of paper mache, so she's not all that durable. But she's a really fun ship, and if you get a good captain on her, she's really quite powerful. But that all being said, you do kind of need a higher point captain to really make her sing, because you definitely need AFT and IFHE to really get the damage numbers up in the Atlanta. But once you get those things, she's a really fantastic ship, and a really fun ship too. And I know the Atlanta does have the reputation for being an HE spammer, but I mean, she's not that difficult to deal with when you're fighting because her armor is so thin, but she is a really fun ship to play. Okay, moving to number 7, we have the Tier 8 American Premium Destroyer. Well, all these are premium ships. The Kid. So the Kid is a Fletcher-class destroyer that has been down-tiered to Tier 8, and they ripped one of her torpedo tubes off and replaced it with more AA. And in the current meta, this ship is really, really strong against carriers. Well, everything's strong against carriers right now, but she is better, way better than most destroyers at swatting down planes. She gets defensive fire for AA guns, and if you have an AA build on her, she is really, really, really good at just melting planes. On top of that, she's also a Fletcher at Tier 8, so you have a really good American gunboat destroyer at Tier 8. Now, her one torpedo tube is kind of useless. Well, it's not completely useless. It's just that you only get one set of torpedo tubes, and they do take quite some time to reload. So you only got one shot, and then you gotta wait quite a long time before you can get another set of torpedoes out. So she's definitely a gunboat destroyer and not a torpedo boat. But she's a very good gunboat because, again, it's a Fletcher at Tier 8, which means you can see Tier 6 and Tier 7 ships in battle, unlike the Fletcher. So she's really, really good at that. And on top of all that, she gets a hill, which makes this ship very, very, very comfortable to play for new destroyer players. And you can be more aggressive with that hill once your skills improve, and with destroyers. And it's just a really, really nice ship to get, and I would highly recommend it. Alright, so number 6, we have the Tier 6 British battleship Warspite. Yes, the Warspite. I'm sure most of you have heard about the ship, and she is a fantastic Tier 6 premium. She has 15-inch guns, and she's, well, I mean, 15-inch guns at Tier 6 means you can overpin the bows of most of the ships that you encounter. Obviously not Tier 8 ships, but she's a really, really good ship. Her guns use normal APs. They don't use British BB AP, which means against battleships you can get some really, really nice pins with those 15-inch guns. And her armor is okay, but her overall survivability is pretty decent because she does have a better than average heal. You may have heard me refer to a ship's heal in some other videos as a Warspite heal. A Warspite heal in my book, it's a heal that's better than average, but it's not that crazy heal like the Conqueror and the Lion get. So it's a really good heal. You get more health back than you do in a normal heal, and it's just a great combination all around. And the ship is faster than some Tier 6 battleships. I'm looking at you, American battleships. You rock around at about mid 20 knots with the speed flag, so it's pretty decent in that regards. It's not crazy maneuverable, but you can get out of some sticky situations with the maneuverability. Her turrets, however, are a bit slow. You may have heard me refer to something as a Warspite turret rotation time, and that is because the turrets do take some time to turn. It's not crazy like the Yamato, but it takes a hot minute for these turrets to 360, which, I mean, for accurate 15-inch guns at Tier 6, there's got to be a payoff somewhere. Alright, so moving on to number 5, we have the Tier 7 German battleship Scharnhorst. The Shiny Horse. So the Scharnhorst is the real-life version of the Gneisenau, because the Gneisenau in-game is what the Gneisenau class battleships were supposed to look like later in the war, but the Gneisenau met the RAF, and the Scharnhorst met the Royal Navy. So that 6-gun, 15-inch version of... So that 15-inch gun layout that the Gneisenau had isn't what the ships really looked like in World War II. The Scharnhorst is what they really looked like in World War II with the 9 280mm guns. And the Scharnhorst, amazing ship. You get torpedoes, you get 9 280mm guns. That does sound small, but they do reload quickly, and it's fairly accurate, especially considering it's a German battleship. But again, you do have 9 guns, so you are throwing more shells at the target. Maneuverable, torpedoes, great secondaries if you build into them, some of the best secondaries in the game. and ship is just an absolute blast. It's a brawler, has great armor for that. And yes, again, I'd highly recommend getting the Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau. Gneisenau is pretty fun, but she's more aggravating because her guns are nowhere near as accurate as the Scharnhorst is. But still, great ship. Highly recommend it. Okay, moving on to number 4, we have the Tier 8 German battleship, Tirpitz. The Tirpitz is pretty much a clone of the Bismarck. There's a couple of differences between the two. The Tirpitz has torpedoes and doesn't have hydroacoustic search, but also has... Now, there's a couple of differences between the Tirpitz and the Bismarck. The Bismarck has hydroacoustic search. The Tirpitz does not. The Tirpitz has torpedoes. The Bismarck does not. And the Tirpitz has less AA than the Bismarck. But besides those differences, the ships are pretty much exactly the same. Except Tirpitz with the torpedoes, she's the better knife fighter in a brawl. Because when you have torpedoes on a battleship, that is the absolute ace up your sleeve in a brawling situation. It doesn't really matter what tier ship you're fighting in a brawl. If you just shove 4 torpedoes into their side, that's probably going to eliminate a nice chunk of their health. I've seen a Tirpitz easily take out a Grosser Kurfürst with her torpedoes and a Kremlin. It's great, especially when you're surrounded and you just throw 2 sets of torpedoes at whatever ship is around you and they actually connect. That's a great feeling. And again, great secondaries. You can get them out to a little over 11 kilometers with a secondary build. The gun, she has 8 15-inch guns, which aren't terribly accurate because, again, German dispersion. But in brawling ranges from about 12 kilometers in, they're fine. They hit hard. You get good pins on it. The armor is great on the Tirpitz. Again, it's just a Bismarck with torpedoes and less AA. So just a really fun ship, and this is actually one of the first premium ships I ever bought in the game. And yeah, that's back when I had like a couple of tier 5s, and I was tired of playing tier 5, so I bought the Tirpitz at tier 8. Played a couple of games at tier 8, realized I had no idea what the heck I was doing, and went back down to tier 5. So, anyway, on to number 3. We have the tier 9 French battleship Jean Bart. So the Jean Bart is a Richelieu class battleship, but it's good. It's got better dispersion, better sigma, better secondaries, much better AA, and it also gets the main battery reload booster, which, if you have the correct build, you can get the Jean Bart's reload time down to just above 7 seconds, like 7.8, 7.9 seconds. Granted, you have to be about 1500 health for that to happen, but I've had it happen many times before. So the Jean Bart has a 20 second reload if you equip main battery mod 3 on her guns, and her guns, she has 8 15-inch guns, all for the superstructure, just like the Richelieu. And their base reload is 25 seconds, main battery mod 3 20 seconds. Then you throw the adrenaline rush on top of that, and then when you activate main battery, when you activate the main battery reload booster, that cuts the reload time down to half. So with Adrenaline Rush, if your base reload time is 25 seconds, Adrenaline Rush kicks in, you pop that main battery reload booster, it's going to cut it down to about 13 seconds. But if you have main battery mod 3, base reload time is 20 seconds, you take some damage with Adrenaline Rush, pop main battery reload booster. It's not rare that if you're at about half health, your reload time will be like 8, 9, 10 seconds. And then when you get down to really low health, like I said, 1500, it's like 7 seconds. It is absolutely crazy the amount of damage you can do in the Jean Bart with that reload booster. The major downside is that she is still an up-tiered Richelieu, so her hull is still a tier 8 hull. But I mean, most tier 8 ships play at tier 10 games most of the time, and that also kind of plays to your favor because the hull is so squishy. You will take a lot of, well, not a lot of damage. You will take damage fairly regularly, but again, that's just going to get your reload time down much quicker. She also has fantastic AA, and she has decent secondaries, but I wouldn't recommend building into them. You should build into the main battery. Alright, moving on to number 2. We have the Tier 9 American battleship Georgia. So the Georgia, pretty new addition to the armory. She is a prototype Iowa design. She has 6 457mm guns. They are supposedly the most accurate battleship guns in the game, according to Wargaming. They hit really hard. They're really accurate. She has great secondaries. You can get them out to over 11 kilometers. It's Massachusetts' secondaries. And if with a secondary build and Adrenaline Rush, those secondaries will be going off almost constantly. So for her 18-inch guns, the base reload is 25 seconds. That's pretty good. And you could go with a main battery build or a secondary build. I'm with a secondary build. And her top speed is pretty mental too. With the engine boost consumable that she has, she can go just light speed for a battleship at 40 knots. A 40 knot top speed on a battleship with 18-inch guns and amazing secondaries. It's great. The ship is a little squishy, but again, that plays into if you have Adrenaline Rush, that's just not terrible for you. But it's not great either because the ship is a good brawler, but it's not an excellent brawler like some of the Germans are because she doesn't have the armor to really just go for it. It's not terribly hard to delete her if you get at her sides because after all, it is an Iowa hull and Iowas aren't that hard to citadel, but still just tons and tons and tons of fun can be had in the ship. It's really ridiculous some of the just the way this ship is, but again, it's just fun. Okay, number 1, we have the Tier 10 Soviet supercruiser Stalingrad, the only ship on this list that you need to grind steel for. Now, Stalingrad, she has the same guns as the Kronstadt, but they are far more accurate. They hit really, really hard. The ship itself is fairly fast. It's somewhat maneuverable, being that it can shift its rudder pretty decently for a ship of its size, but also has a huge turning circle radius. But if you're playing the Stalingrad right, you won't be maneuvering that much, because she plays very similarly to a Moskva. She has great bow armor, so you stay stuck bow into your target and throw your very, very, very accurate 12-inch shells at them. And she has really good AP, she has decent HE, she gets great radar, it's got a really long range, well over 11 kilometers, but it doesn't last for all that long. And she gets defensive fire for AA, and her AA is really good, because again, the ship was designed, you know, in the 1950s, so she has really good AA, you don't even have to build into it for it to be pretty decent. And she actually has a smaller detection range than most other Tier 10 cruisers. So she's got a lot going for her. She's a great ship, well worth the grind. And it's not as crazy OP as some people may lead you to believe. She has plenty of weaknesses. You get her aside, and she's not that hard to citadel. But again, if you play her right, you won't be showing too many ships your side. So she's a great ship, worth the grind. And still, I know it's hard to grind still. I had to go through several seasons of ranked sprints, clan battles, and the Snowflake event in December, and I did buy the Still campaign, but I felt she is definitely worth it. Alright guys, so that is my list for the top 10 ships from the Armory. I know I did go really fast through some of the ships, but again, I didn't want this to be a 30-minute video. I wanted it to be an under 20-minute video. That way you guys could, you know, watch most of it without taking too much time out of your day to do so. But if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Let me know what your top 10 ships from the Armory are. Do you think I should have included more on this list, less on this list? What ships don't belong on this list? What ships should have been on this list? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Alright guys, hope you have a wonderful Monday. Hope to catch all of you guys in the next one.